For our English speaking audience, welcome everybody in our free talk project. Our goal is to keep our mind more open when all the borders are closed in order to compensate a little bit for these restrictions. Today we have our special guest from Serbia, from Belgrade. We have Professor Svetislav Kostic from University of Belgrade, Faculty of Law. He also is a distinguished tax practitioner in the Serbian office of Deloitte. Svetislav, we are glad to have you.
The pleasure is mine.
Okay. Svetislav is a well-known academic who is studying the phenomenon of the taxation of the digital nomads, highly mobile individuals who can work remotely from any place in the world through the use of the internet. And currently, I think in the pandemic time, we have a lot of new dimensions for thinking about this complicated issue, because we are all locked and all are connected digitally. However, we will today start our talk with more general topics about economic impact of COVID-19 in Serbia, and then we are planning to switch more to tax topics, because me and Svetislav, we are both tax people and cannot ignore tax in any discussion. So let us proceed, and I would like to address my first question to Svetislav. It's a general one. What are generally the consequences for the COVID-19 for Serbian economy, for Serbian business? How painful is it? Can you please tell us a few words?
Well, the predictions at this moment is that Serbia will be one of the least hit economies in Europe by the COVID-19 epidemic. So we are getting ready for a drop this year of our GDP of between 1 and 3%. Although we have some predictions that perhaps our economy will just stagnate, that it will not fall. The reason for this is that our economy at the is what is our backwardness to a point is something which is a plus for us right now. So one thing is that tourism and transport sectors are far below the global average in their relevance to our economy. So they make up around 5% of our economy. The global average is 10.8, and tourism and travel is the most hit part of the economy. In comparison, in our neighbor in Montenegro, their economy is driven more than 30% by tourism and travel. So their economy will be hit. They are expecting a fall of their GDP of around 10%. The same as in Croatia, which is around 25% tourism and travel driven, as well as in Greece. So Serbia doesn't have this issue because tourism and travel is very much domestic driven, and it doesn't make a very significant part of the economy. What we will be highly dependent on is the speed at which our primary export markets, and that is Germany, Italy. So our manufacturing is primarily oriented towards the European Union, and the speed of their recovery will actually impact our recovery. Two sectors which are very important to our economy and which are going to be quite resilient. One is the agricultural sector. And the good thing is that so far there has been no drought in this area of the world. So we're expecting a good harvest, and this is going to, and agriculture makes a significant part of our economy. So this is probably going to be a plus. While the other very relevant sector, which is the IT sector, is probably going to be more resilient in comparison to the whole crisis. And thirdly, this is also where we could probably have actually a beneficial aspect. We have we don't export natural resources, so we don't have any minerals or gas or oil. So the crisis, we actually import them as raw materials. So the drop in prices is actually beneficial for the Serbian economy as it stands so far. So we are awaiting a big hit. So around 3%, which is quite significant, a drop. The Serbian government is actually talking about the economy being at a zero rate, not falling. We have the elections in 4 weeks, so I wouldn't trust the government in an election season. Probably they're overstating the results that we have. But a drop of 3% would sound realistic, and in comparison to what is going to happen globally, this is not that bad.
Yeah, it's not bad indeed, especially if you contrast this with the predictions for major commodity exporting countries such as my country. As IMF forecasted, if I'm not mistaken, we are waiting for a fall in GDP growth of about 5% as a result of 2020, as a result of all these factors. So I see it's nice news for you, I suggest. And however, I suppose that even in such not so bad situation, government is somehow doing something, some restrictions, and what I wanted to ask you, what is the general atmosphere in people's minds about this? How unhappy are them if you use some objective
What you have in Serbia, so first of all, the government's response was it really changed dramatically. So in the beginning, when we talk about the beginning of March, we were actually, the government's narrative was that this was it resembled what you would hear in the US from Trump. So this is pretty much like the common flu. We don't have to worry about anything. This is far away. And then somehow we saw that very quickly we actually had conferences where some experts were saying, oh, this is the perfect time to go to Milan to shop because now everything is cheap in Italy. So that's how it began, and then the panic set in. It was very fast. What started happening was we saw a huge influx of people from the worst hit areas, because we have a lot of immigrants in Austria, in the north of Italy, in Germany, and a lot of these people lost their jobs. And we had hundreds of thousands of people actually coming back to the country from these areas. Our public sector is not that developed, so this was a big issue. Secondly, we realized that since this epidemic was not going to be the common flu, our healthcare system, which suffered greatly because, again, of immigration to more developed European countries, will have to cope with, even though it's decimated when we talk about the number of available people. So then panic set in, and it was very visible, which meant that we immediately, within weeks, went into the state of emergency. we went into a complete lockdown, which meant that essentially we had a curfew from 8 o'clock in the evening until 5 o'clock in the morning. Everybody above the age of 65 was prohibited from stepping out of the house. So all public gatherings were prohibited. However, economy continued. So what you had the stores were working, everything was available. People went to work, transportation was organized so that work would continue. But services which could be done from home, where everybody stayed home and worked from home. So
was it obligatory?
Yes. So what happened was that very quickly, from a really laid back position, we went to a very dramatic, heavy-handed measures position. So as a people, Serbs don't really like authority. And we're in the South, so we like to go outside. We don't like to listen to rules. And so people were annoyed by this. Although, because the media was following the government rhetoric that this was very dangerous, that, the lives of our elderly are in danger, we have to take care. People stuck and listened to the rules. We had problems with, at Easter. It was not clear whether the church will abide by the government's positions not to hold Easter ceremonies, but in the end, they were postponed as well. And right now, we are stepping out of the crisis. The problem that we are having, if you're asking me from a psychological position, if we're happy or not, immediately after the state of emergency was lifted, we entered an election season. Now, election season in Serbia is a very fun time, and it can be entertaining. So what you have right now is that from one hype, and that's the virus hype, we entered into a political hype because it's the elections. And what you can feel is actually that on the one hand, I think our government is very eager to have the elections as soon as possible, because then they won't have to face the consequences of the pending economic crisis, which is to be had later on. While on the opposition side, nobody's really eager to take over the government, because everybody knows that the next few years are not going to be that good. So it's a strange time, let's say that. But the weather is very nice. We have a lot of sunshine, and the temperatures are close to 30 Celsius. So this makes up for it.
Oh, thank you for such a broad insight. I see that life is everything but not boring in Serbia currently. And so if international flights will be allowed, I will definitely hold it.
We started flights yesterday. The first flights from Belgrade airport started yesterday.
Oh, I see. But from Russia, it's still you cannot.
They're flying to, I think, London, Amsterdam, and Vienna at the moment.
Oh, I see. So let's switch to more specific issue now, which is fiscal policy in general, both as transfers and on the revenue side. What is? Can you put us some clue? What is there some general line? How are you targeting these measures? Because all the governments are doing something. How Serbian government? What is their plan?
One positive thing that we can say is that since 2012, in 2012, Serbia was very close to bankruptcy. And in 2012, we introduced a set of very stringent fiscal measures, which meant that our current debt ratio, debt to GDP ratio, is below 60%. So we have a very stable fiscal situation, which at the moment, and the government revenues are pretty sound. So this, in the beginning, what this allowed the government is to, in addition to immediate measures such as raising the salaries of all medical personnel by 10 or 15%, I can't remember, but this was done immediately. But they set up a fiscal package. The fiscal package is is very large. It is the weight of it is around 10% of our GDP. So and it entails both direct transfers and loans to businesses, including fiscal measures. Plus, there is a cash helicopter measure, which meant that every single Serbian citizen who is 18 years old or older will get 100 euros from the government to spend as they like. So this is basically handing out free cash to start up the economic motor. That's in addition, that's just a part of this fiscal package, which is around 10% of our GDP. From the tax measures, essentially what you are allowed to do is postpone your tax obligations for next year. So essentially, you can choose not to pay corporate income tax in this year at all, postpone it for next year. Same goes for the salary tax and mandatory social security contributions, with two caveats. One is that you don't distribute dividends. That's what makes you eligible for any aid. That's introduced in order to stop fiscal flight, which always happens from emerging markets in these times. So if you want aid, you can't distribute dividends. And second of all is you cannot lower your headcount, so you can't fire people. And so far, the fiscal, plus there was actually the government, even before the measures were made public, it announced that no businesses will get aid if they start firing people. And the interesting thing was that a member of the, well, I think he's a member of a governing political party who owns hotels, actually started firing people and was publicly reprimanded for this. And so we have at the moment, of our official employment count, very few people lost their jobs. It's around 9,000 in total in a country of 7 million. So employment stability was maintained. Those sectors where we saw our complete inability to react, so where we have a huge issue, is the informal sector. Now, in the informal sector, where people are essentially working outside the legal channels, so some estimates is that around 200,000 people lost their income, so lost their jobs during the state of emergency, during the lockdown. And unfortunately, the system that we have, because we keep no record of these people, is we couldn't give them any aid. So one of the conclusions that we can make out of the pandemic is that those sectors of our society which are informal, and there's still a pretty significant part of our economy, around 20–25%, the system as it is set up now can't help them. So what they will have to rely on is the opening up of the general economy and the rehiring process that will occur. So what we're talking about, is babysitters, ladies that will come to your home to help you clean up, people who, so people who are not officially, they're not in the system. They're not paying taxes.
I see, like self-employed.
Exactly, self-employed but not registered.
Yeah, I see. Actually, in Russia, we had a special measure targeted to these people because previously we introduced a special system to move them out of the shadow. They could pay very little tax through mobile application. it is not controlled, it's not audited, and now government wants to return these taxes to them, which they paid the previous year. Like,
Okay.
you're a good guy, you came out of shadow, now tax morale idea works. So
we
we
never
have
managed
this
to solve the
digital.
system. That's a good issue. That's a good idea. We are still unable to solve the issue of the the self-employed unregistered people, and this is one big lesson that we've learned, that the systems currently, that they're very vulnerable, and that we were unable to help them. But so, for example, but again, let me repeat, we're in the election season. If you listen to the Serbian government, what you will hear is the data that 9,000 people lost their jobs, which is terrific, because that's very few in these circumstances. But what you will not hear is the data on the consequences of the informal sector. And there probably we have a lot of people losing their daily income and having to struggle in these month and a half, 2 months that we were locked down.
I see. So, Svetislav, we have about 2-3 minutes for our final issue, which I wanted to discuss with you. Currently, the discussion about taxation of the largest digitalized businesses, it a little bit changed its shape, because governments and people, they see that all the economy is losing in the pandemic, but digitalized businesses currently is getting this windfall profits. Do you see, I don't know, change of the discussion about taxation, about these companies in Serbia, digital service tax, something like this?
No, Serbia will, I would highly doubt that Serbia will go this way because of several reasons. One is, first of all, Serbia is a very small market. So because we're a small market, the big digital companies can actually afford not to do business in Serbia. So, and if they don't do business in Serbia, we're actually harming our own economy, because without them, our economy can't be global. So it's plus they're also capable of transferring the cost of Serbian tax on Serbian customers just by increasing their own fees. So no. On the other hand, Serbia is very much, our IT sector is disproportional to the, so for example, if you take percentage-wise, our IT sector is double to that what is average in the European Union.
Do you have tax benefits for IT?
Yes, we have an R&D deduction, we have an IP box regime, we have a system for taxing repatriates and high-skilled foreigners, many, at least 5 or 6 measures. So what we would never do is actually go in this direction of additionally taxing the IT sector, because the IT sector is what we see as the driver of the economy. Thirdly, what we will probably go looking for is not the the digital sector. What we will be looking at is because we're an immigrant country, we have a lot of people living in wealthier countries. We will probably be looking at the way in which foreign pensions are taxed once they come back to Serbia. So, because, for example, we've allowed Germany full resident state full taxation, source state taxation of pensions which they pay out to people who come back to Serbia once they retire. We will probably be looking at the inequality in our society, which is very high. So we will probably be revisiting inheritance taxation to see, because, well, to be very frank, those who make their millions in the 90s are going to start dying. So the transfer of wealth is going to begin, and we should look at this. And probably we will look at ways in which to actually, to generate, so for example, we are thinking about a small tax on remittances which come from abroad. Nothing on digital, because digital will probably be felt as endangering the foundations of our own economy.
Okay. So to conclude, I can suggest that life is not stopped in Serbia, in economic, in business, in tax policy, as Svetislav shared with us discussions, and life is very vivid.
And this is all going to end. I mean, I know you're still closed down in Russia, but it will end. So light at the end of the tunnel is there. So, you know, be happy.
So we had Svetslav Kostic from Belgrade, from University of Belgrade and Deloitte, Serbia. Thanks for watching us and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.